black waitress secretly fed a quiet boy every day. One evening, 4 SUVs pulled up to her diner. The plate slid across the worn counter in complete silence, steam rising like a prayer no one dared speak aloud. For 43 nights, Beverly had fed the hollow-eyed boy who appeared like a ghost at closing time. She never asked his name. He never said thank you. But when 4 black SUVs pulled into her diner's parking lot that October evening, she realized the quiet child she'd been saving was about to save her right back. Before we dive into this incredible journey of love, loss, and unexpected family, I want you to know that stories like this exist all around us, quiet heroes making extraordinary differences in ordinary moments. If this story touches your heart, if it reminds you that kindness can change everything, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to remember that they matter, that they're seen, that love can find us in the most unexpected places. Your like and share could be the encouragement someone needs today to reach out, to help, to believe that broken things can be made beautiful again. Now, let's discover how a hungry boy, a grieving waitress, and a billionaire's guilt became the foundation for something miraculous. Every evening at 6:17, this dance repeated itself in the amber glow of Rosie's diner. Beverly would glance at the clock, prepare a meal no one ordered, and deliver it to a boy who never asked. The other waitresses pretended not to notice. The regulars kept their eyes on their coffee. Even old Sal, who owned the place and counted every nickel, somehow never saw the food that disappeared from his kitchen. But Beverly saw everything about Adam: the way his clothes hung loose on his shrinking frame, the careful distance he kept from adults, the hollow look that reminded her of another child, in another life, who'd needed saving and found none. What would you do if you saw a child slowly disappearing before your eyes? Would you look away, or would you risk everything to help? Share your thoughts below. The bell above the door chimed as Adam slipped inside, moving with the practiced invisibility of the unwanted. October wind followed him, carrying the scent of coming rain and something else, fear, maybe, or just the particular loneliness that clings to children who've learned not to take up space. Beverly didn't look up from wiping down the counter. Looking would make it real, would turn kindness into charity, and Adam's pride was already tissue-thin. Instead, she moved through her routine: pour coffee for the trucker in booth 3, refill sugar dispensers, prepare a meal for a ghost of a boy who materialized each night like clockwork. "Rough day," she murmured as she passed his booth, not quite a question, not quite requiring an answer. Adam's shoulders lifted slightly, not quite a shrug, not quite communication. His eyes stayed fixed on the window, watching the street like something might follow him inside. Beverly had learned to read his silences like other people read newspapers. This one said, "Worse than usual." She returned with tomato soup, still bubbling at the edges, and a glass of milk so full it threatened to spill. The boy's eyes flickered to hers for just a moment, gray eyes too old, too knowing, before dropping back to the table. "Eat while it's warm," she said softly, the same words every night, a ritual that meant you matter and I see you and you're safe here. In the corner booth, partially hidden behind a newspaper he wasn't reading, John Doffy watched the exchange through expensive glasses that couldn't quite bring the world into focus anymore. He'd been coming here for 3 months, ever since his therapist suggested he reconnect with real people. As if real people could fill the canyon his daughter's death had carved through his chest. As if a cup of coffee in a rundown diner could make him feel anything but the weight of his billions and the emptiness they couldn't buy away. But something about the boy pulled at him. Maybe it was the way Adam held himself, careful, contained, like someone had taught him that taking up space was dangerous. Or maybe it was Beverly, the way she moved around the child's pain with the grace of someone who understood that healing happened in small doses, in quiet moments, in plates of food that said what words couldn't. John had built an empire on reading people, on knowing what they needed before they asked. But here, in this diner that smelled of grease and hope, He found himself unable to decode the story unfolding before him. He only knew it mattered. In a life where nothing had mattered for 2 years, 7 months, and 13 days, that was enough to keep him coming back. Beverly felt the weight of the stranger's attention but didn't acknowledge it. She'd learned long ago that rich men in expensive suits meant trouble for women like her. They came with lawyers and questions and power that could snatch away everything she'd built. So she kept her head down, her movements efficient, her face neutral. But she knew he watched Adam too. Knew he left $100 bills under his coffee cup. Knew he arrived just before the boy and left just after, like a guardian angel in Armani. She should have been suspicious. Should have worried. But something in his eyes, a grief that matched her own, made her think he might understand why she fed a boy who wasn't hers, why she'd risk her job and more for a child whose name she'd only learned by reading it off his worn backpack. The diner hummed with its evening rhythm. Truckers grabbed dinner before the long haul. Nurses stopped for coffee between shifts. The world outside grew dark, October pressing against the windows like it wanted inside. And in the back booth, Adam ate with the focus of someone who'd learned that food was never guaranteed, while Beverly watched from the corner of her eye, and John Doffy pretended to read about stock prices he no longer cared about. None of them knew that in 23 minutes, 4 black SUVs would pull into the parking lot, their headlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights seeking prey. None of them knew that the fragile ecosystem of their evening ritual was about to shatter, that secrets would spill like coffee across the counter, that by morning everything would be different. For now there was only this: a boy eating soup, a woman standing guard, and a broken billionaire learning that sometimes the smallest kindnesses were the ones that saved you. Adam finished his sandwich, leaving the crusts. He always left the crusts, a habit from better days when being picky was a luxury he could afford. Beverly appeared with a slice of apple pie, still warm, vanilla ice cream melting into pools of sweetness. She set it down without a word, but her hand brushed his shoulder. So quick, so light, anyone watching might have missed it. But Adam didn't miss it. That touch said "you're not alone" louder than any words could. His throat tightened, and he focused hard on the pie, on the way the cinnamon made patterns in the filling, on anything but the burning behind his eyes. He'd been coming here for 43 days. 43 days since he'd chosen wrong, picked the parent who needed him instead of the one who wanted him. 43 days of his father's silences and slurred words and empty refrigerator. 43 days of Beverly's quiet salvation, one meal at a time. The first sign of trouble was the way Beverly's hand stilled on the coffee pot. John noticed it from his corner booth. The subtle tension that rippled through her shoulders, the way her eyes tracked something outside the window. He followed her gaze and saw them. 4 black SUVs rolling into the parking lot with the synchronized precision of a military operation. Their headlights swept across the diner's windows like searchlights, turning the familiar space alien and exposed. Adam felt it too, that shift in the air that preceded disaster. His spoon clattered against the pie plate, and his whole body went rigid. Beverly moved without thinking, stepping between the boy and the window, her body a shield against whatever was coming. "Kitchen," she said quietly, not looking at him. "Now." But Adam was frozen, his gray eyes wide with a recognition that made Beverly's blood run cold. He knew those vehicles, knew who they carried, and that knowledge transformed him from a hungry child into something else, something terrified and small and desperately trapped. The bell above the door didn't chime so much as shriek when the first man entered. He wore a suit that cost more than Beverly made in 6 months, his shoes clicking against the linoleum with corporate authority. 3 more followed, each one scanning the diner with eyes trained to assess and catalog threat. "Mr. Doffy," the lead man said, and Beverly's heart stuttered. Not because he'd spoken to the stranger in the corner, but because Adam flinched at the name like it was a physical blow. John folded his newspaper with deliberate calm, though Beverly caught the tremor in his fingers. "Marcus, I wasn't expecting an escort tonight." Your brother insists on security protocols, sir. Especially given recent developments. The words hung in the air like a threat. John's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. I'm having coffee. Surely that doesn't require a tactical team. Marcus's eyes swept the diner, pausing on Beverly, lingering on Adam despite the boy's attempt to shrink into the booth. Your brother is concerned about your evening excursions. He feels they're becoming problematic. My brother, John said slowly, standing now, doesn't dictate where I take my coffee. The tension in the room ratcheted higher. The other diners had gone silent, forks suspended midway to mouths, everyone suddenly very interested in their plates. Old Sal emerged from the kitchen, took one look at the suits, and retreated like a man who'd learned when not to be brave. Beverly's mind raced. The billionaire in the corner wasn't just any wealthy man. He was John Doffy, whose name graced half the buildings downtown, whose family's power reached into every corner of the city. And somehow, impossibly, Adam knew him. The boy's reaction wasn't just fear of authority. It was personal, specific. Perhaps we should discuss this outside, Marcus suggested, though it wasn't really a suggestion. No. The word came not from John, but from Adam. Small, quiet, but firm in a way that made everyone turn. The boy stood on shaking legs, his thin frame dwarfed by the booth, but his chin lifted with a courage Beverly had never seen from him. You can't make him leave. He hasn't done anything wrong. Marcus's expression shifted, a flicker of something, surprise? Recognition, crossing his features. Young man, this doesn't concern. It does. Adam's voice cracked, but he pushed forward. It concerns me. Everything about the Doffy family concerns me. The silence that followed was deafening. Beverly watched John's face transform, confusion to shock to something that looked devastatingly like hope. He took a step toward Adam, then stopped, as if afraid the boy might bolt. What did you say? John's voice was barely a whisper. Adam's hands clenched at his sides. My name is Adam Chin. My mother was Linda Chin. She was your daughter's best friend. She died in the same accident. Have you ever witnessed a moment when someone's entire world shifted in an instant? When a single revelation changed everything? Tell us about a time when truth transformed your life in the comments. The words landed like physical blows. John's legs seemed to give out, and he gripped the edge of a table for support. Beverly moved instinctively closer to Adam, her protective instincts flaring even as her mind struggled to process what she was hearing. That's impossible, Marcus said sharply. The Churn boy was placed with his father. The courts didn't check if his father wanted him, Adam said, his young voice carrying years of pain. They didn't check if there was food in the house or if he came home at night or if... His voice broke, and Beverly's hand found his shoulder. Adam, she said softly, and he leaned into her touch like a plant toward sunlight. John was moving now, crossing the space between them with unsteady step. Linda's son. You're Linda's son. She brought you to our house, you played with Emma, you... His voice caught on his daughter's name. You were in the car? Adam shook his head. I was supposed to be. Mom was picking me up from soccer practice, but I was sick. Dad came instead. If I hadn't been sick... Stop. Beverly's voice cut through his spiral. She'd heard enough guilt from children who blamed themselves for surviving. None of that was your fault. John's eyes moved between Adam and Beverly, seeing their connection, understanding dawning. You've been taking care of him. It wasn't a question, but Beverly nodded anyway. Someone had to. Sir, Marcus interrupted, we need to verify this claim. The legal implications. Get out. John's voice was quiet but carried the weight of command. All of you. Get out of this diner right now. Your brother specifically instructed. My brother can go to hell. The profanity sounded strange in John's cultured voice, but it carried conviction. That boy is Linda Chen's son. I held him as a baby. Emma called him her brother. And you're going to stand there and talk about legal implications while he's... His voice broke as he took in Adam's thin frame, his hollow cheeks. "Get out." Marcus hesitated, then nodded to his team. They filed out with military precision, but Beverly noticed one stayed by the door, watching through the glass. The threat hadn't passed. It had only paused. As the bell chimed their exit, John sank into the booth across from Adam. Up close, Beverly could see the resemblance she'd missed before, not in features, but in the way they held their grief, like something too precious to set down. 2 years, John said softly. "You've been with your father for 2 years?" Adam nodded, his brief courage exhausted. "Why didn't you?" "Linda's parents, they would have. They're in Taiwan. Dad wouldn't let me go. Said I belonged with him." The words came out bitter, aged beyond their years. Beverly watched John process this, saw the moment he understood what Adam wasn't saying. The neglect. The hunger that brought him here every night. The reason a 12-year-old boy knew how to make himself invisible. "How long have you known?" Adam asked suddenly. "That I come here." John's laugh was hollow. "I didn't. I've been coming here because—" He paused, seeming to realize the absurdity of it. "Because my therapist said I needed to connect with real people. I had no idea you were. God, Emma would never forgive me. She loved you so much." At Emma's name, Adam's composure finally cracked. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and Beverly pulled him against her side, feeling his thin shoulders shake. John reached across the table, his hand hovering uncertainly before settling on Adam's arm. "I'm sorry," the billionaire whispered. "I'm so sorry. I should have looked for you. Should have made sure you were okay. I was so lost in my own grief, I didn't think." "Nobody thought," Beverly said quietly. "That's the problem. Nobody thinks about the kids who fall through the cracks. The ones who don't have advocates or trust funds or people fighting for them." John looked at her then, really looked at her, and Beverly saw him understand that she wasn't just talking about Adam. There was a story in her eyes too, a child she'd failed to save, a guilt that drove her to feed hungry boys who reminded her of what she'd lost. The diner had slowly returned to its normal rhythm, conversations resuming in hushed tones, but the three of them remained cocooned in their booth, bound by shared pain and unexpected connection. "What happens now?" Adam asked, his voice small. John's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. "My brother knows I'm here. Those men will be back, probably with lawyers." He looked at Beverly. "Is there somewhere a back exit?" She nodded, understanding immediately. "But that's just delaying the inevitable." "Maybe. But it gives us time to figure out what Adam wants. What's best for him." John's eyes met hers. "Will you help me?" "I can't. I don't know how to do this alone." Beverly thought of all the reasons to say no. The job she'd lose if she got involved with whatever family drama the Dofis were brewing. The attention it would bring. The questions about her own past that might surface. Then she looked at Adam, this boy she'd been saving one meal at a time, and knew she'd already chosen. "Sal keeps his truck out back," she said. "Keys are in the visor." Sal's truck smelled like cigarettes and motor oil, a sharp contrast to the leather and cologne of John's usual rides. Beverly drove while John sat pressed against the passenger door, Adam between them like a bridge connecting two worlds that should never have met. The boy's shoulder touched hers with each turn, a warm reminder of why she was risking everything. "Where are we going?" Adam asked, his voice steady despite the circumstances. Beverly glanced at John, who was staring at his phone, watching texts pile up from numbers she suspected belonged to very powerful people. "My place for now. It's not much, but it's safe." "I can't ask you to," John began. "You didn't ask." She took a hard left, checking the mirrors for any sign of black SUVs. "And somebody needs to think about what's best for Adam, not what's best for the Dofi family image." John flinched but didn't argue. In the dim light from passing street lamps, Beverly caught him studying Adam's profile, searching for traces of the toddler who'd once played with his daughter. "You used to love trains," John said suddenly. Emma had this wooden set and you'd play for hours. You'd make these elaborate tracks that went under the couch, around the coffee table. Emma would put her dolls on the trains and you'd drive them to— what did you call it? Adventure Station, Adam whispered, and Beverly felt him tremble against her side. That's right. Adventure Station. Where everything was possible and nobody was sad. John's voice cracked. I helped you build a bridge once. You were so determined to make it tall enough for Emma's princess castle to fit underneath. You gave me the special blocks. The ones from your office. My architectural models. My assistant was furious. A ghost of a smile crossed John's face. Worth it though. You were so proud when it finally stood. Beverly turned into her neighborhood, modest houses with chain-link fences and dogs that barked at shadows. She felt John tense beside her, probably calculating property values and crime statistics. But Adam relaxed, recognizing the kind of place where people minded their own business and nobody asked questions about hungry kid. Why did you stop coming? Adam asked suddenly. After the accident. Mom's parents wanted to see you at the funeral, but you weren't there. The question hung in the air like an accusation. Beverly pulled into her driveway, killing the engine, but nobody moved. I couldn't, John said finally. I couldn't stand at Linda's grave knowing Emma should have been there too. Couldn't face your grandparents, knowing I'd failed to protect any of you. I was supposed to drive that night, did you know that? But I had a conference call with Tokyo. One more deal, 1 more million, one more reason to let someone else handle the people I loved. Mom wasn't supposed to drive either, Adam said quietly. She'd worked a double shift at the hospital. But Emma begged her. Said you promised she could come to my soccer game, and you forgot. Beverly watched John crumble at this revelation, his composed facade shattering. She'd seen guilt before, lived with it every day, but this was different. This was the moment a man realized his choices had rippled out in ways he'd never imagined. Inside, she said gently. Both of you. Before someone sees us. Her house was small but clean, everything in its place. Adam moved through it with familiar ease, heading straight for the kitchen while Beverly flicked on lights. John stood in the living room looking lost. This man who commanded boardrooms reduced to uncertainty by a 2-bedroom rental. Adam knows where everything is, Beverly explained, watching John notice the boy's comfort. He's been here before. How long have you been taking care of him? 43 days at the diner. But I've known him longer. He cuts through my yard on the way to school. Started leaving sandwiches on the porch when I noticed he was going through my garbage. John's face went pale. He was hungry. Yeah. Amazing how a kid can be starving in plain sight when nobody's looking. She didn't bother softening the accusation in her voice. Adam returned with 3 glasses of water, setting them on the coffee table with careful precision. Beverly makes the best grilled cheese in the state, he said, attempting lightness. Better than Mom's, even. Your mother burned everything, John said automatically, then caught himself. I'm sorry, I shouldn't. It's okay to remember her, Adam said, settling on the couch. Dad acts like she never existed. Won't even let me keep pictures up. Beverly sat beside Adam, noting how John took the chair across from them, maintaining distance even as everything in his body language screamed to move closer. Tell me about your father, she said to Adam. The truth this time. The boy's shoulders hunched. What's to tell? He drinks. He works sometimes. He forgets I exist until he needs someone to blame. He picked at a thread on his jeans. It wasn't always like this. Before the divorce, before Mom died, he was different. Like the accident broke something in him too. That's not an excuse, Beverly said firmly. I know. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying. Adam struggled for words. Everyone talks about how grief changes people. Nobody talks about how it changes the people around them too. How you become invisible because your pain reminds them of theirs. When was the last time you really saw someone who was struggling? How often do we walk past pain because it's easier than stopping to help? Share your thoughts below. Your comment might encourage someone to make a difference today. John leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Your father, does he hurt you? Not the way you mean. Adam's voice was matter-of-fact. He doesn't hit me. He just isn't there. Even when he's home, he's not there. And when the food runs out or the power gets shut off, he tells me I'm old enough to figure it out. The power, John started. Beverly paid it last month, Adam said, and John's eyes snapped to her. You paid his electricity bill? She shrugged. Kid can't do homework in the dark. On a waitress salary? I manage. She met his gaze steadily. We do what we have to for the kids who need us. John was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, Emma would have been 14 now. She wanted to be a doctor, like Linda. Said she was going to cure sadness. His laugh was broken glass. I told her sadness wasn't a disease. Shows what I knew. She sounds amazing, Beverly said softly. She was. Kind like her mother, stubborn like me. She would have dragged me to that soccer game, conference call or not. She always knew what mattered. He looked at Adam. She'd be furious with me for losing you. You didn't lose me, Adam said. I got lost. There's a difference. Beverly's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowning. Sal says there are men at the diner asking questions. Showing your picture, Adam. John was on his feet immediately. My brother. He must have tracked the connection. We need to. Sit down, Beverly commanded, and surprisingly, he did. Running makes things worse. Trust me on that. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. I know someone. A lawyer who handles custody cases. She owes me a favor. I have lawyers, John started. You have corporate lawyers. Probably the same ones your brother uses. She found the number, hit dial. You need someone who fights for kids, not stock portfolios. While Beverly made the call, Adam moved closer to John, drawn by invisible gravity. Did you really come to the diner because of therapy? John nodded. Stupid, right? A billionaire trying to find meaning in a $2 cup of coffee. Not stupid. You found me. By accident. Maybe there are no accidents, Adam said quietly. Mom used to say that. Said the universe puts people where they need to be. Linda always was smarter than the rest of us. John hesitated, then asked, Do you remember much about her? Everything. The way she sang off-key in the car. How she'd sneak me extra cookies when Dad said no. The way she smelled like lavender and antiseptic from the hospital. Adam's voice wavered. I dream about her sometimes. She tells me to be brave. To find the people who'll help me fly. Is that why you spoke up tonight? When those men came. Adam glanced at Beverly, who was still on the phone. Partly. But mostly because Beverly's been brave for me every day. Seemed like it was my turn. John followed his gaze. She's remarkable. She lost someone too, Adam said quietly. A daughter. She doesn't talk about it, but I heard Sal mention it once. Said that's why she feeds kids like me. Trying to save the ones she can. This revelation hit John visibly. He studied Beverly with new eyes, recognizing a fellow member of the worst club in the world. Parents who'd outlived their children. Beverly ended her call, turning back to them. Marissa can meet us first thing tomorrow. She says with John's resources and my testimony about Adam's situation, we can file for emergency custody transfer. To who? Adam asked, and the fear in his voice broke Beverly's heart. To whoever you feel safest with, she said gently. This is about you, Adam. What you need. I need. He stopped, looking between them. I need to not be alone anymore. John moved then, crossing to the couch, sitting on Adam's other side. You're not alone. Not anymore. I promise you that. You promised Emma you'd come to my game, Adam reminded him, but there was no cruelty in it, just fact. I did. And I'll spend the rest of my life making up for the promises I broke. John looked at Beverly. Both of you have been saving each other while I've been drowning in my own self-pity. Emma and Linda would be ashamed of me. Or proud that you're here now, Beverly suggested. Grief isn't a competition. We all handle it differently. Her phone buzzed again. This time, her face went pale. They're at the school. Asking about Adam's attendance, his emergency contacts. How did they? John started, then shook his head. Richard. My brother. He has connections everywhere. He pulled out his own phone, staring at it like a weapon. I could call him. Try to reason with him. What does he want? Beverly asked. Control. Of the company, of me, of anything that might threaten the family image. John's jaw tightened. A neglected child connected to the Doffy name would be a PR nightmare. He'd rather bury it. Bury Adam, you mean? Beverly said sharply. Not literally. But he'd make sure Adam disappeared into the system. Private facility, maybe. Boarding school. Somewhere quiet and far away. Adam had gone very still between them. Beverly took his hand, feeling how cold his fingers were. That's not happening, she said firmly. I don't care how much money your brother has. Money isn't everything, John agreed. But it's a lot. And Richard knows how to use it. They sat in silence, the weight of what they faced settling over them. Outside, a dog barked. A car passed. The normal world continued, oblivious to the small drama playing out in Beverly's living room. I could go back, Adam said suddenly. To my dad. Tell them everything's fine. No, Beverly and John said in unison. But if it would keep you both safe. Listen to me. Beverly turned Adam to face her. You are not a problem to be solved or a scandal to be managed. You're a child who deserves love and safety and a full refrigerator. And I'll fight anyone who says different. She's right, John added. I've spent 2 years learning that all the money in the world can't bring back what matters. But maybe it can protect what's left. Adam looked between them, these two broken adults who'd found purpose in protecting him. Okay, he said simply. We fight. Dawn came like a reluctant witness, gray light seeping through Beverly's kitchen curtains as she made coffee with hands that barely trembled. Adam slept on the couch, curled under the quilt her grandmother had made, looking younger in sleep than his 12 years. John sat at her kitchen table, having never left, his expensive suit rumpled and his face showing the wear of a sleepless night. He looks peaceful, John said softly, watching Adam through the doorway. First time I've seen him sleep through the night. Beverly poured coffee into mismatched mugs. Usually he startles awake every few hours. Checking exits, I think. John accepted the mug gratefully. You know him better than anyone. 43 days of dinners. That's all. But sometimes that's enough to see what matters. She sat across from him, studying his face in the morning light. You haven't slept either. Couldn't. Kept thinking about all the nights he went hungry while I sat in my empty mansion, drowning in self-pity. He took a sip, grimacing. This is terrible coffee. It's what I can afford. But she smiled slightly. Though after last night, I'm probably out of a job anyway. I'll take care of. No. Her voice was firm. I don't want your money, Mr. Doffy. I want Adam safe. There's a difference. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. The name on the screen made his face harden. Richard. Moment of truth, he muttered, then answered. Brother. Beverly could hear the voice on the other end, cold and clipped. She watched John's expression shift from wary to angry to something like determination. No, Richard, I won't come in for a family meeting. Because the family you're worried about died 2 years ago. The boy is Linda Chen's son, yes. That's exactly why I'm involved. Adam appeared in the doorway, quilt wrapped around his shoulders, drawn by the sound of his name. Beverly held out her arm and he came to her, leaning against her side. I don't care about the optics, John was saying. I don't care about the board or the shareholders or whatever narrative you've crafted. He's 12 years old, Richard. 12 and hungry and alone. No, you listen to me for once. The line went dead. John stared at his phone, then laughed bitterly. He hung up. $20 billion in assets to manage, and he hung up like a petulant child. What did he say? Beverly asked. That I have 1 hour to return Adam to his father and report to the office, or he'll have me declared mentally incompetent. John set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. Says my obsession with the accident has affected my judgment. He's probably had the paperwork ready for months. Can he do that? Adam's voice was small. He can try. He has board members who'll swear I've been unstable since Emma died. Which isn't entirely false. John met Adam's eyes. But I've never been more clear-headed than I am right now. Beverly's phone rang. Marissa, the lawyer. She answered, listened, her face growing grim. They're filing an injunction, she reported, claiming I kidnapped Adam from his legal guardian. There's a warrant. For you. John was on his feet. That's insane. You fed a hungry child. And transported him across state lines, technically. His father lives 2 miles on the other side of the county border. Beverly stayed calm, though her heart raced. Marissa says if I bring Adam to the courthouse now, she can fight it, but… It's a trap, John finished. Richard's lawyers will be there. They'll take Adam before any judge hears the truth. Adam pulled away from both of them, the quilt falling to the floor. Maybe I should just go back. This is getting too complicated. People are getting hurt because of me. No, Beverly said firmly. People are getting hurt because adults failed you. That's not your fault. But it is my fault. The words burst out of him. If I just stayed quiet, if I hadn't gone to the diner, if I hadn't let you feed me, then you'd have starved, John said bluntly. Is that what you think Emma would want? For you to disappear quietly so the adults don't have to feel uncomfortable. Adam flinched at Emma's name. She's dead. It doesn't matter what she'd want. It's the only thing that matters. John knelt in front of the boy, his expensive suit hitting Beverly's worn linoleum. She loved you, Adam. Called you her brother. And I failed her by losing you. I won't fail her again. The moment stretched taut between them. Then car doors slammed outside. Multiple vehicles. Beverly looked out the window and saw them. Not the black SUVs from last night, but police cars. Official. Legitimate. Harder to fight. Back door, she said quickly, but Adam shook his head. No more running. I'm tired of being scared. He straightened his thin shoulders. If they want me, they can take me. But I'm going to tell the truth first. Adam, Beverly started. You taught me that, he said to her. Every night, when you fed me without making me feel ashamed. You showed me I was worth saving. So let them come. Let me tell them about the empty refrigerator and the lights that don't work and the father who looks through me like I'm a ghost. The knock came, authoritative and demanding. Beverly looked at John, saw her own determination reflected in his eyes. Together, he asked. Together, she confirmed. She opened the door to find not just police, but men in suits, Richard's lawyers, no doubt. And behind them, a man who could only be Richard Doffey himself. He had John's features but none of his warmth, carved from the same stone but polished to a corporate sheen. John, Richard said, not even glancing at Beverly or Adam. This nonsense ends now. You're right, John agreed, stepping forward. It does end now. Officers, I assume you have a warrant. One policeman, looking uncomfortable, nodded. For Beverly Washington suspected kidnapping. And we need to return the minor to his legal guardian. I'm his legal guardian, a slurred voice said from behind the group. Adam's father stumbled into view, clearly drunk despite the early hour. There's my boy. Causing trouble again. Adam shrank back, and Beverly moved instinctively to shield him. But John stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of his billions. Officers, this man is intoxicated. You're going to return a child to someone who can't even stand straight. Not your concern, Richard said smoothly. Mr. Chun has custody. The law is clear. The law is wrong, Beverly said, finding her voice. That man hasn't fed his son in weeks. Adam comes to my diner every night, hungry and scared. I've watched him count pennies for milk, while his father drinks away the grocery money. Allegations, one of the lawyers said dismissively. Without proof. I have proof. Adam's voice cut through the arguments. He pulled out his phone, an old model, cracked screen, and began scrolling. Pictures. Of the empty fridge. The final notice letters. The bruises from when I tried to wake him up and he swung without meaning to. Have you ever witnessed a child's courage in the face of adult failure? When do we stop protecting the system and start protecting the vulnerable? Share your thoughts. Your voice might give someone else the strength to speak up. The police officers exchanged glances. One, a woman with kind eyes, knelt beside Adam. Can I see? Adam showed her, photo after photo. Beverly watched Richard's controlled expression crack slightly. Even he couldn't spin this away entirely. Doesn't matter, Adam's father said, swaying. He's my son. My blood. You can't just take him. No, John said quietly. But I can offer an alternative. He looked at his brother. Drop this charade, and I'll sign over my shares in the company. All of them. You get complete control, no more board fights, no more power struggles. Richard's eyes sharpened. You'd give up everything for this boy? I'd give up everything for Emma's brother, John corrected. The question is, what's your price for doing the right thing? The silence stretched. Beverly could see the calculations happening behind Richard's eyes, the value of complete corporate control versus the potential scandal of this scene playing out publicly. And if I refuse? Richard asked. Then I call every media contact I have. Tell them about the billionaire who tried to send a starving child back to an abusive home. Show them the pictures Adam took. Let them draw their own conclusions about Dofi family values. John smiled coldly. You taught me well, brother. Everything has a price. What's yours? Adam's father tried to lunge forward then, but the alcohol and the officers stopped him. You can't buy my son. I'm not buying him, John said calmly. I'm buying his freedom. There's a difference. I'll sue. You'll take the $100,000 my lawyers will offer for relinquishing custody, and you'll disappear. John's voice was ice. Or you'll face criminal charges for child neglect, with Beverly and half her diner as witnesses. Your choice. Beverly watched it all unfold like a chess match played with human pieces. She hated it, the reduction of Adam's life to negotiations and power plays. But she understood it too. Sometimes you had to use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. I want it in writing, Richard said finally. The shares transferred immediately. Done. John pulled out his phone. I'll have the papers drawn up within the hour. And the boy? The police officer asked, still kneeling beside Adam. Goes with Ms. Washington for now, John said. Until proper custody arrangements can be made through family court. That's not, one of the lawyers started. It's exactly what's going to happen, the female officer said, standing. I've seen enough. Mr. Chun, you're coming with us. Public intoxication at minimum, and we'll be investigating the neglect allegations. Adam's father was led away, still protesting, still claiming ownership like Adam was property instead of a person. Richard followed, already on his phone with corporate lawyers, restructuring an empire he'd just won. And then it was just the three of them again, standing in Beverly's doorway as the sun finally broke through the clouds. You gave up everything, Adam said to John, wonder in his voice. No, John corrected, putting a hand on the boy's shoulder. I gave up nothing that mattered. Emma taught me that, and you reminded me. Money is just paper. Power is just an illusion. But this? Taking care of each other? This is real. Beverly felt tears on her cheeks, didn't bother wiping them away. So what happens now? Now, John said, looking between them, we become a family. Not the traditional kind, maybe. But the kind that chooses each other. The kind that shows up. He met Beverly's eyes. If you'll have me. Both of you. Adam looked up at Beverly, seeking permission or maybe offering it. She saw in his eyes what she'd seen that first night. Hunger for more than food. Hunger for belonging. For safety. For love. Well, she said, pulling both of them into a hug that probably surprised John with its fierceness, I guess I'd better make more coffee. The good stuff this time. Your coffee is perfect, John said into her shoulder, and she felt him shake with what might have been laughter or tears or both. Adam squeezed tighter, and Beverly felt the broken pieces of 3 lives beginning to fit together in a pattern none of them had expected but all of them needed. 6 months later. The smell of pancakes filled the kitchen of the house on Maple Street, not Beverly's old rental, but not John's mansion either. Something in between, something that felt like home. Adam stood at the stove, carefully flipping pancakes while Beverly packed his lunch and John read the morning paper. His reading glasses perched on his nose. Don't burn them, Beverly warned, but her tone was fond. I never burn them, Adam protested, though they all remembered the charcoal disasters from his first attempts at cooking. I'm practically a chef now. Practically, John agreed, looking up from the financial section. Though I still think we should frame that first pancake as a reminder of how far we've come. The easy banter felt natural now, but Beverly remembered how stilted those first weeks had been. 3 broken people learning to be a family, stepping carefully around each other's wounds. John had insisted on buying the house, neutral territory, he'd called it, and Beverly had insisted on paying her share of the mortgage. They'd compromised, as they'd learned to do about everything. Adam slid the last pancake onto the stack, turning off the burner with the confidence of someone who belonged in this kitchen. He'd grown in 6 months, not just taller, though he had that too, but steadier. The hollow look had left his eyes, replaced by something Beverly had never dared hope for: security. Court's at 10, John said, folding the paper. You ready? Today was the day. The final custody hearing that would make official what had been true for months, that Adam belonged with them, that they belonged with each other. Beverly's stomach fluttered with nerves she tried to hide. What if something goes wrong? Adam asked, voicing her fears. Nothing's going wrong, Beverly said firmly. Marissa says it's just a formality at this point. Your father signed the papers. The social worker's report was glowing. Judge Martinez has seen all the evidence. Besides, John added, reaching over to ruffle Adam's hair, you're stuck with us now whether the court agrees or not. Adam grinned, the expression transforming his face. Beverly still marveled at how much he smiled now, how quick he was to laugh. The scared, silent boy from the diner felt like someone from another lifetime. They ate breakfast together, the morning sun streaming through windows that Adam had helped Beverly hang curtains in. John read them interesting bits from the paper, a habit that had started as an attempt to fill awkward silences and had become a cherished routine. Adam told them about his science project, due next week, his voice animated as he described his hypothesis about plant growth. I could help with the data analysis, John offered. I'm good with spreadsheets. You're good with everything, Adam said. That's why Beverly makes you do the taxes. I make him do the taxes because I hate math, Beverly corrected. And because he offered. I offered because I wanted to contribute, John said. This family doesn't work if we don't all pull our weight. Family. The word still sent a warm shock through Beverly's chest. She'd never expected this, to find love in the ruins of loss, to discover that broken people could heal each other if they were brave enough to try. The drive to the courthouse was quiet, each of them lost in thought. Beverly watched the familiar streets pass by, thinking about how much had changed. She'd kept her job at the diner. Sal had been surprisingly understanding about the whole situation, especially after John had quietly paid for the new equipment the kitchen desperately needed. But she'd cut back to part-time, spending more hours at home, more time being present for Adam's life. John had changed too. He still worked, but differently. He'd started a foundation, the Emma and Linda Foundation, focused on supporting children in the foster system. He said it was what his daughter would have wanted, and Beverly believed him. The driven, isolated man from the diner had softened into someone who remembered that success meant more than stock prices. "There's Marissa," Adam said as they pulled into the courthouse parking lot. Their lawyer waved from the steps, her smile confident. Beverly had grown to trust that smile over the past month. Marissa Chin, no relation to Adam, despite the name, had fought for them with the fierce dedication of someone who understood that families came in all shapes. "Ready to make this official?" Marissa asked as they approached. "More than ready," John said, and Beverly heard the emotion he tried to hide. The courtroom was smaller than Beverly had expected, less intimidating. Judge Martinez was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a reputation for putting children's needs first. She'd interviewed Adam privately twice, visited their home once, and read every report the social workers had filed. "This is an unusual case," Judge Martinez began, looking at the three of them seated at the plaintiff's table. "Joint custody between two unrelated adults, with a child who has no biological connection to either guardian. But unusual doesn't mean wrong." Beverly felt Adam's hand slip into hers, his palm slightly damp with nerves. "I've read the reports," the judge continued. "I've spoken with teachers, neighbors, social workers. I've seen the evidence of neglect from the biological father, and I've seen the evidence of care from the proposed guardians. Most importantly, I've listened to Adam." She looked directly at the boy then. "Adam, you've been very clear about what you want. Can you tell the court once more, in your own words?" Adam stood, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I want to stay with Beverly and John. They're my family now. They see me, they take care of me, they love me. That's all I ever wanted, to be loved and safe and to matter to someone. What does family mean to you? Is it about blood or about the people who choose to love and protect you? Share your definition of family in the comments. Your words might help someone else understand they're not alone." Beverly felt tears prick her eyes. Beside her, John's hand found her free one, completing their circle. "The court finds that joint custody between Beverly Washington and John Doe is in the best interests of the minor child," Judge Martinez said formally. "Both guardians have demonstrated their commitment to Adam's welfare, their ability to provide a stable home, and their understanding of the responsibilities of parenthood. This custody arrangement is hereby approved." The gavel came down with a sound like a door closing on the past and opening on the future. Adam turned to them, his face radiant, and Beverly pulled him into a hug that included John, the three of them holding each other in a courthouse that had seen too many families broken and not nearly enough made whole. "It's official," Marissa said, grinning. "You're a family." "We were already a family," Adam said, his voice muffled against Beverly's shoulder. "Now we just have the paperwork to prove it." 1 year later. The diner looked the same as always. Worn booths, flickering neon, the eternal smell of coffee and possibility. But Beverly saw it differently now as she pushed through the door, Adam and John behind her. She wasn't here as an employee tonight, but as a customer, celebrating. "Beverly," Sal called from behind the counter. "There's my favorite family." They slid into the back booth, the same one where Adam used to sit alone, hungry and invisible. Now he sat between his two guardians, animated and secure, telling Sal about his latest school project while John listened with the attention of someone who'd learned that the small moments were the ones that mattered most. "The usual?" Sal asked, though he was already heading to the kitchen. "The usual," Beverly confirmed. "Grilled cheese for Adam, coffee for John, pie for all of them." Some traditions were worth keeping. As they waited for their food, Beverly looked around the diner. In the corner booth, a woman sat alone, her clothes rumpled, her eyes holding the particular exhaustion of someone carrying too much. At the counter, a teenage boy counted coins, his face carefully blank as he calculated whether he had enough for a full meal. "I'll be right back," Beverly said, standing. She approached the counter, her voice gentle. "The soup's really good tonight. And the cornbread's fresh." The boy looked up, suspicious. "I can only afford." "It's on the house," Beverly said. "Sal's feeling generous tonight." Behind the counter, Sal nodded without question. He'd learned, over the past year, that sometimes the most important meals were the ones that weren't paid for. Beverly returned to her booth to find John watching her with a soft smile. "Some things never change," he said. "Some things shouldn't," she replied, settling back beside Adam. Their food arrived, and they ate with the comfortable ease of people who'd learned to be grateful for simple pleasures. Adam told them about his friend Marcus, who was coming for a sleepover next weekend. John mentioned a new program the foundation was funding. Beverly listened to both of them, marveling at how full her life had become. "Remember the first time I saw you here?" Adam asked John suddenly. "You looked so sad. Like you'd lost everything." "I had lost everything," John said quietly. "I just didn't know I could find it again." "Emma would be happy," Adam said with the certainty of someone who'd learned that love didn't end with death. "She'd like that we found each other." "She'd love that you're happy," John agreed. "That's all she ever wanted for the people she cared about." Beverly watched them, these two who'd found each other through grief and chosen to build something beautiful from the wreckage. She thought about the daughter she'd lost, the one whose absence had driven her to feed hungry children, to look for ways to matter in a world that often felt meaningless. "I think they're all happy," she said softly. "All the ones we've lost. I think they're glad we didn't give up." Adam reached for both their hands, linking them together across the table. "We're going to be okay," he said, and it wasn't a question anymore. Outside, the October wind rattled the windows, but inside the diner, three people who'd found each other in the darkness sat in the warm light, no longer hungry, no longer alone. They'd learned that family wasn't about blood or law or tradition. It was about showing up, day after day, choosing love over fear, choosing each other over the easier path of solitude. The bell above the door chimed as new customers entered, and Beverly automatically glanced over, her instincts still attuned to those who might need help. But tonight, she was exactly where she belonged, in a booth with her son and the man who'd become her partner in the beautiful, complicated work of building a family from scratch. "Ready to go home?" John asked eventually. "Ready," Adam said, sliding out of the booth. Beverly took one last look around the diner, at the place where their story had begun with a hungry boy and a plate of food offered without conditions. Then she followed her family out into the night, toward the house on Maple Street where the porch light was always on and there was always room at the table for one more. Some stories ended with dramatic gestures or grand revelations. This one ended with something better. The quiet certainty of people who'd learned to love each other well, who discovered that the most profound transformations happened not in moments of crisis but in the accumulation of ordinary days filled with extraordinary care. What small act of kindness could you offer someone today? Sometimes the most powerful changes begin with something as simple as a shared meal or a listening ear. Tell us in the comments about a time when someone's kindness changed your life, or when your kindness changed someone else's. As they drove home through the familiar streets, Adam fell asleep in the back seat, his face peaceful in the glow of passing streetlights. Beverly and John exchanged a look in the rearview mirror, the look of parents who'd learned that love was both simpler and more complicated than they'd ever imagined. They'd started as strangers bound by loss. They'd become a family bound by choice. And in a world that often felt broken beyond repair, they'd proven that sometimes the most beautiful things grew in the spaces between the cracks, nurtured by nothing more than the radical decision to care for each other. The house on Maple Street waited for them, warm and welcoming, a place where a boy who'd once been invisible was seen and cherished, where a woman who'd lost everything had found it again, and where a man who'd forgotten how to hope had remembered that love was always worth the risk. They were home,